Hey everybody, it's Chris Dortch II, welcoming you to a week chock full of batshit insane live events and fun happenings that we hope are really going to round out this year's CFF for you and make you feel very much like you would if you were down on the ground taking shots of whiskey with us here in Chattanooga. One of the key events of the last few years of the festival, something that the first time we tried it, we knew had to become a fabric of the festival, is David Lawson Jr., our esteemed mayor and CFF board members' Rustic Films pitch competition. This is now, I believe, its fourth year, and when we began doing this event, we had no idea how much it was going to catch on with you guys or how inspired so many of you were going to be by it, and that's very much why we're here and doing this. So it really became something that we wanted to bring to you every year. And Dave has once again, one of his very first winners for this competition, BJ Colangelo, also a very talented filmmaker, talented writer, a figure that we very much respect and adore, is appearing with Dave again this year and is once again a part of this pitch competition. And I think it's going to be an incredible year. I've thankfully gotten a chance to read all of these incredible pitches and these screenplays that were sent our way. And the 7 that Dave chose to take a part of this event have got some really cool and special work. So we're excited to see them pitch, and we're excited to kick things off with what's this year again? Oh my God, 2022. Here we go with the Rustic Films pitch competition.
Hey there, CFF. You may notice that I'm in a different shirt from the thing that you just watched like an hour ago. That was pre-recorded. This is live though, so you will see all of my wonderful guests. As Chris lovingly mentioned, I am joined again this year by BJ Colangelo. BJ, thank you so much.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
I said this last year as we were chatting afterwards. Having you help out just really it makes me smile. I love the fact that you've always been very forward about how much winning the pitch competition meant to you, and that just means that I'm just very happy about that. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it with no exaggeration that winning the pitch competition definitely did change my life. It put me on a different track towards my artistry and my filmmaking. And I'm so eternally grateful for Chattanooga Film Festival and for you and for everyone who makes this happen.
Yeah. So here's how this is going to work. I've got a timer on my phone because we do things super high tech here at CFF. I'm going to bring everybody in one at a time. They will get 7 minutes to pitch us their idea, during which time I will be kind of writing down notes and keeping track, because otherwise I will have no clue what everyone said by the end of this. Then at the end of that, BJ and I will take a small, brief moment to kind of collect our collective thoughts, and then we'll choose a winner. And that person, the winner is basically, you get a Zoom with me and we start talking about your, whatever pitch wins. We take where they are in their process, and I help get them to whatever the next level or whatever kind of assistance I can give them. Cool. Well, let's just start bringing people in. I'm just going to bring them in however they're in my. And first up is Ariel. Hi, Ariel. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
You get to be number one.
Oh, wow. Lucky me.
I don't know if that's great or bad. I personally loved being first because then I could just fuck off for the rest of the time.
I'm not the same. I was actually hoping for exactly the same thing. So
great. So as I mentioned in our little pre-show thing, I got a timer at 7 minutes. Start it at 7. As soon as I start, you can start pitching it. And then be sure to tell us as if I know nothing about the project, because BJ doesn't know anything about any of these projects.
Okay.
All right, and go ahead.
All right. I'm going to quickly share my screen. And sorry, here we go. Oh no, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm really sorry. My laptop crashed, and this is my husband's.
No worries, I paused it.
And it's telling me that I have to do something in system preferences to grant access to sharing screens. Sorry.
No worries.
I'm the worst.
No. You got you have it on my side, so you're good on my side.
Oh, really? It's there?
Yep, should be. Or no, you should have screen sharing ability.
Oh no, it's not that. It's that it doesn't want in system preferences me to allow anything. So I have to. There we go. Oh, great. It's I am so sorry. It's requiring my husband's.
Technology is the devil. This is not your fault.
I thought I was all prepared, and I swear
Ariel, if I had $1 for every Zoom meeting that messed up, I could probably finance every one of these ideas.
Oh man.
In the meantime, BJ and I will.
By the way, BJ, I am both of your biggest fans, FYI. Not to get all fangirly, but like I love your work. So
it's quite easy to be a big fan of BJ. I will wholeheartedly admit.
I'm really bad at taking compliments, but I'm just gonna say thanks and smile.
Well, I really appreciate like everything you've said about horror and trauma, and especially within the rape revenge genre, et cetera, because I have this fight a lot with people and people don't acknowledge it, and it drives me crazy. I'm sorry, I have to wait for my husband to get up. So I'm not just stuck up.
I'll throw you back in the waiting room and you can figure this out and we'll come back.
Yeah, if that's okay. I'm sorry.
No, for sure.
Yeah, you're totally fine.
Okay.
All righty. Well, we're going to go Wolf. You're muted, bud.
I sure am.
How you doing, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
I'm well. As I mentioned in kind of our little pre-meeting, you'll have 7 minutes. I'll start it. Be sure to pitch it as if I know nothing about it, because BJ doesn't know anything about it.
Okay.
Unlike last year, I didn't even tell her what I picked. So go ahead and start.
Cool. Yeah. Dream of Drowning is basically Misery meets The Shape of Water. I started to think about my queerness and how for a long time I kind of had to hide who I've been and kind of fit myself into a box that I didn't really want to be in. And I also started to think about relationships and friendships and how sometimes when those things have run their course, we don't really have a good time reconciling that. And it becomes like trying to hold a fistful of rain. And the tighter we squeeze, the more we lose. And Penny, our main character, was kind of born out of that. As a young girl, Penny and her dad were out on the ocean and they got caught in a squall and Penny went overboard and she was drowning. And she is sure, and she's been sure all of her life, that this woman, this ethereal beauty, this mermaid saved her. No one believed her, and she spent most of her life keeping that secret. And she still has dreams. She still has that memory of that woman in the water. And people not taking her seriously is not the worst problem that she has. The worst problem is that she feels like she's wasted this gift. She feels like this woman gave her back her life and that she's wasted it. She flunked out of veterinary school with this like marine biology concentration. She's just been proposed to and she's not in love with her partner. And she feels like life has been one long gray streak. And she feels like she wasted this gift until this incredible set of circumstances brings this mermaid back into her life. She finds her having suffered this horrible injury in a boating accident. And she, with this veterinary knowledge that she has, is able to sew this mermaid up. And in a moment of rash decision-making, she brings her home and puts her in the bathtub. And what follows through the middle of the film is them getting to know each other, and it's exhilarating and enthralling. And she finally has this thing she's been looking for her entire life. And this romance begins to bloom, but then reality kind of sets in and it becomes a situation where the mermaid says, hey, listen, I have to go home. You have to let me go home. And at first, Penny's excuses for not letting the mermaid go are reasonable. You have to rehabilitate. And then she starts to say, well, my fiance is coming in and out. But by this point, the audience knows that she's pushed everybody away. She has put all of her eggs in this basket. And as we get towards the climax of the film, Penny begins to really lose it. And it gets to a point where the mermaid says, listen, I will crawl out of here if I have to, but I am going to leave this apartment. And Penny says, well, you don't have to crawl. Like, we're in love. We're going to be in love. And someday soon, I'm going to watch you walk down the aisle towards me. And the mermaid says, I can't walk. And Penny says, not yet. And so the climax of the film becomes this very upsetting surgery, as she is trying to turn this mermaid, give her legs and turn her into something that fits what she wants. And it's this really horrible montage of casts and like plaster casts and bandages and harnesses and braces as she creates this legs for this creature. And as the mermaid comes to, Penny in kind of psychosis says, you just have to take a few steps. And the mermaid, against her will, does it. And she takes a step and she takes another. And for a moment, it seems like it was a success. And the mermaid looks down and blood begins to saturate the bandages and they begin to crumble and the harnesses collapse and snap. And so do the braces. And she's just a pile of viscera. And Penny, in a moment of clarity, snaps out of her psychosis and she rushes to the mermaid and she's just crying. And she says, I can fix this. I can fix this. And the mermaid says, I need you to come closer. And Penny leans down and the mermaid says, I need you to know something. I was never going to save you. And we cut back to this vision of her as a child being pulled under the water by this storm and this beautiful woman coming towards her. And she suddenly turns to something else, something feral, sharp teeth, dark eyes. She's reaching for Penny, whose own father is the one who picks her up out of the water. And we cut back to the mermaid saying, I was going to eat you. And she pulls Penny in, rips a chunk of her throat out and collapses back. And now Penny is left in the disaster that she's caused. She's bleeding. The siren is dying. And the only thing she can think to do is say, I can fix this. And in her dying moments, in the closing moments of the film, she's able to use the last bit of her strength to get the siren to her truck, and driving, careening through town, is able to get her to the water's edge, repeating the whole time, I can fix this. I can fix this. And she brings the remains of this creature to the water's edge and sets her down in the water. And as she begins to turn into sea foam and go out to sea, Penny says, I can fix this. I can. And she collapses face first into the water, bleeding. And we see this scene. We go wide. We see this scene. And we cut to black. And
I love that so much. There's a lot. PJ, do you have any immediate questions or thoughts for Wolf?
I mean, I had a couple things. So one, I think that the mermaid subgenre is criminally underutilized, for one thing. Two, as a teenager who loves the criminally underseen Sarah Paxton mermaid film Aquamarine, I love that this feels like the adult gritty reboot of that story. But I also found that I love that you acknowledged how it relates to your queerness, because immediately my brain flagged the wonderful charity for gender expansive kids in the UK is called Mermaids. And I was like, oh, this is a really nice and tightly knit world you've kind of made here. So it's wonderful and creepy and lovely.
Thank you.
I think it's, anybody that's gone through any kind of trauma or decision making to this level, I think it's interesting to take a look at like what our choices affect, how they affect the other people, and how we deal with internally affects all of our external relationships. And I think that's a very interesting, I think you have a lot to explore there. So it's very interesting. Awesome pitch, man.
Thank
you. Look at that. That was exactly 7 minutes. Boom. All right, well, if I'm going to throw you back in the waiting room, wait, because I'm going to bring the winner back in when this is all said and done. Boom. All righty. We're going to bring in Amanda. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
Sorry, I'm watching the YouTube live stream. There's a little bit of a delay, so I wasn't expecting to be called in yet.
Yeah, there's I think it's like a 30-second delay. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start the 7-minute clock. Go ahead and pitch the thing like as if nobody had ever had ever heard anything about your project. If you want to leave a little bit of time at the end for us to ask you some questions, you're welcome to, or you're welcome to take up the whole 7 minutes, up to you. And go ahead.
All right, so I'll just start with the log line, which is after a mysterious board game summons a group of soul-hungry demons, a young woman and her dysfunctional family must survive a series of horrifying trials that are set in their own personal hell. And so the family consists of their father, Roger, the older sister, Maggie, and her boyfriend, Kyle, the middle brother, Harvey, and his wife, Erica, and the youngest sister, Jane, and her husband, Warren. And they seem like a nice, normal family on the outside, but like every family, there's deeply buried trauma and secrets that these demons then force them to have to confront. And while the film is more of an ensemble piece with each member of the family getting their own showcase, Jane is really the emotional center of the film. And so the film takes place over one day at an isolated beach house. We open on a well-dressed middle-aged man supervising the cleanup of the beach house. The place is absolutely trashed. There's like food wrappers everywhere and glass shattered, and there's strange footprints in puddles of a tar-like substance on the ground. The man goes to the kitchen table and puts away a mysterious board game named Lamentations, which is the name of the film. And then he places it in the hall closet. We then cut to the previously mentioned family members who are arriving at the house in their respective cars. After the death of the mother of the family, Jane decides to organize a weekend getaway in order to hopefully bury some hatches and get along just for a weekend. And as they arrive at the house, there's instantly conflict between the family members, especially among the siblings. Maggie and Harvey hate Warren because he's older than Jane, even though they have a pretty healthy relationship. Maggie and Harvey pick on Jane just because she's the youngest sibling. Harvey doesn't even seem to like his wife despite her best efforts to keep him happy. Maggie surprises the family by bringing her new boyfriend Kyle along despite Jane's fears stemming from a home invasion in her past. Kyle acts like an insensitive 35-year-old frat bro to everyone, and Roger just wants his children desperately to get along. And after one dig at Jane too many, she and Warren prepare to leave when suddenly the family hears like a scurrying noise in the hall closet. Harvey goes to investigate and finds the same edition of Lamentations from before. Roger convinces everyone to stay and play the game because it's what their mom would have wanted. Only a few rounds of playing, the family unintentionally breaks the rules of the game, which leads to the accidental summoning of 6 demons, and all literal hell breaks loose. The sky turns red, the windows shatter, and the house shakes violently. And at the ringing of 3 bellowing church bells, the demons walk through the door. As Kyle was an unexpected guest, he's quickly dispatched, and now there's a demon counterpart for each family member. The demons explain that they are the harbingers of the family's lamentations, and from here, each family member is forced to endure forced to endure a trial that is designed by their respective demon. If they survive their trial, they get to live, but if they lose, their souls will be dragged away to the demon's domain. Each trial is like its own little short film with each member isolated from the rest of the family members, and they're given the option to either live through their worst nightmares and most disturbing memories or be killed in the worst ways that they can imagine. And that's kind of the cliffhanger I'll leave it on there. With the script, I was deeply inspired by the Hellraiser and Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I like to think that these, with a few story tweaks, this would fit into either franchise. And what inspired me the most, like while I was writing it, was during like the peak of the pandemic. I had to move home for 10 months. I had to leave my college and move back in with my parents. And so I wanted to channel that feeling of like claustrophobia and isolation and just the feeling of intense dread that we had during that time, and kind of still now. And then my grandfather passed about a year after I wrote that first draft. And so then I started to really channel into feelings of grief and mourning and having to overcome all that. And so we've been going through a lot the last couple of years. And I think this is a movie that not only are people going to be able to relate to, I think it'll also be really entertaining. And that's my pitch.
Awesome. I'll go first this time. I have a couple questions. Have you thought about what the demon design looks like at all yet? Has it? Oh, by the way, before I even ask that question, I totally got Hellraiser vibes. As you were pitching it, it's literally written down on my paper.
Nice, great.
I love that franchise. Also love Nightmare.
Yeah, me too.
So I definitely that came through. So
that's perfect.
anyway,
great.
Demon design. Have you thought about it at all? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm not an artist, so I haven't done any designs myself. But I was looking into, weirdly enough, the Cirque du Soleil costume and creature designs. If you look at them, they're very surreal. They have a lot of different appendages added to the bodies, especially around the face, a lot of prosthetics. And so as of now, I pictured them as being kind of uniformly black and genderless, and they're kind of just dripping like they're just straight out of this black liquid the whole time. But each demon has their own physical characteristic and trait that plays into their personality. So like one of them has a tail that kind of works as a whip. One of them has horns that kind of curls around and digs into their head, and that makes them like really agitated and aggressive. And so each of them has their own thing, but I wanted it to be a lot more unique than just the basic like red demon with wings and a pointy tail.
Nice. BJ, do you have any questions or thoughts?
I love that it's kind of this idea of having people having to face their own, either their worst memories or their personal brands of hell through the guise of playing a game, because I recently just wrote about games and horror, and it's like it's such an easy way to get your audience to understand the stakes and get on board with you, because we all know what it's like to play a game. So I think that's a really clever way to introduce this world. And yeah, I love the Hellraiser vibes. Big fan. I think that's great.
Also, it's a really easy way to tell your audience what the rules of your world is without
right, exactly.
without, I mean, because you kind of have to, without it feeling cheap. Which, as somebody who often makes movies that have batshit crazy rules, it's always hard to make sure that everybody exactly understands what you're going for. Would you, I mean, it felt like, as you were describing that this is mostly special effects, practical effects versus visual effects. Is that would you say that's an accurate statement?
Yeah, most of what happens, focuses more on kind of body horror. There's some body horror at times, some gore effects. But the situations that they never go to hell at any point. A lot of their nightmares take place in real life. Like one of them just takes place in an apartment, one takes place in a bedroom. And so the locations would be pretty simple. The first half of the script takes place just in that beach house. And so, a lot more emphasis on the demons and then a couple different kills in the movie. But other than that,
Great. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room. Thank you so much for sharing your pitch with us. Be sure to stick around because I bring the winner back in, so don't leave.
Okay, sounds good.
There you go. All right. Are you ready? Do you have any more notes to take down? Are you ready?
Oh no, I got my notes all ready for the next one.
All right, here we go. We're gonna bring in Josh. Hello, Josh. How are you? Oh, you're muted, Josh.
Hi, I'm doing well.
Wouldn't be a Zoom if we as I mentioned at the beginning, I got a little timer here with 7 minutes on it. Pitch your project as if we haven't heard anything about it, because BJ is going in completely blind. I obviously know what materials have been sent over. You can feel free to use up your entire 7 minutes, or if you want to leave a little bit of time for us at the end to ask you some questions, you're welcome to. Cool.
All right.
All right, and go ahead.
So this all started as a short film that we were going to make in April of 2020, but due to some quarantine, we ended up scrapping the project, and I ended up spending a lot more time at home, and I ended up writing it into a 90-page feature-length script. I've been working on it since then, and I'm really happy with the version that I have now. And I think I have a unique perspective because when I left film school in 2003, Atlanta hadn't really boomed yet. So I ended up getting a job as an EMT and eventually a paramedic. And I did that for 8 years. And in my pitch, like I wanted to make it clear, like how honest and frank, like I wanted the depictions of trauma and violence and nudity, and because in the job that's just normal. And the biggest asshole that you might meet in a regular job is going to be the asshole that's like in a hurry. But the biggest asshole that you meet when you're on the ambulance has probably also been like profusely bleeding for the last 6 hours, is yelling at people. He's drunk. He's been refusing to go to the hospital, but now he's pale, diaphoretic, and probably having a heart rate of 150 beats a minute. Still an asshole, but you have to take care of him and get him alive to the hospital. And so this story, the synopsis, is about a character who's trying to be normal, is doing this job and is trying to be normal and having a normal relationship. So basically, it starts off, they run a call, and it is a person that they have known, and they're dead and dying, and it's hopeless, but you still have to work them. And like, you're there, chest compressions and breathing for them. But it's this person that you knew, even if it was a long time ago, it was a one-night stand, like nothing important, but it hits this person really hard. And so after that, they end up meeting this other person that they feel close to. And they're trying, whether it's like romantic or platonic, trying to make that relationship work while there's this episodic chaos of running ambulance call after ambulance call. But yeah, it's called Bridge Over Lava, and the main character is the proverbial bridge over lava that is being burnt out, like trying to help others. Every generation thinks that they will be the generation that sees the end of the world, but the world keeps going on, and it just gets shittier and shittier, and we're here to deal with it, and we just see it, and you're just looking for that person to share that with. I was reading online some examples of pitches, and a lot were like, this thing plus this thing will make this thing. And I really wanted to avoid that, but like one popped into my head the other day, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. So bringing out the dead like rules. And it's actually despite like some over the top moments, like it's actually pretty realistic as far as like being on an ambulance goes. But if you take that ambulance and you pull it out of the city and put it into a gritty, rural, Southern Gothic deep South, that's what Bridge Over Lava is. Like out of Bringing Out the Dead and more like some season 1 True Detective vibes, or like Florida Project.
Nice. It's funny because the comp, we also try to stick away from comp pitching whenever we're pitching projects, because it feels a little cheap, especially when you're doing something that's like dramatically different, but it is super effective. And weirdly, I don't know if you've seen, I produced a film called Synchronic, and we did a whole bunch of we did ride-alongs with EMTs. That's a job, man. I don't know that I have the stomach for it. That's a lot of
I'm a set dresser. I'm a set dresser now. Been set dressing for 5 years, and I like it a lot more.
You're dealing with people in a very, a very specific point in their life.
Yes.
Which it can be, the end of it, the worst moment of it, or the best moment of it. And kind of sometimes it's up to you, and sometimes it's not up to you. And that's a lot to carry in general. Awesome. BJ, did you have any questions, thoughts?
No real questions, but just the main thought that I have is I love the idea of, you have to keep someone alive that you may not necessarily like, or having to keep someone alive that you have a past with. That's not necessarily like, oh, this is my brother, but like somebody that you're connected with on a level that your coworkers probably aren't, and what that can do to your psyche. I think it's a really strong story angle.
Yeah, especially if the history is not particularly pleasant, like a ghosting situation. Uh, now just laughing at my own pun of calling a dying person ghosting. So don't mind me. I'll just be over here making dad jokes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I don't. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we'll stick in the waiting room because we're going to bring everybody back towards the end. Let's see if Ariel's figured out her screen sharing. How we doing, Ariel?
Hello, I hope we're doing good. I'm gonna really quickly do this and see if it works.
Let's see. Okay, great. So you've already gotten the spiel, so I'll start your 7 minutes and you can go.
Okay. Oh no, it's asking for another thing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just couldn't test it while you guys were gone. I'm sorry. Give me just 1 second and I will get this sorted.
I love it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you are.
I totally, yeah. I just didn't even. Oh, great. I have to quit Zoom.
I tell you what, Ariel, do it without visual. I know that's hard.
Okay.
But you can send me the visuals afterwards. You got me.
Yeah, I mean, I know my content backwards and forwards. So it's
beautiful.
I just was so proud of my visuals. Anyway, but it's okay. So first of all, my horror pitch is called Your History. I'm a queer disabled filmmaker, podcaster, and author. And my pitch, Your History, is a horror comedy of epic proportions about the forgotten women of history. Some of it comes from my background as a Latin teacher for 15 years, but it is a horror comedy feature pitch. So the story is about primarily two girls, Prue and Vi. Prue is a deaf teenager, and she and her best friend Vi cast a spell that brings to life the characters from their history class. As they try to undo the spell, the forgotten women of history rise from the textbooks, igniting a bloody battle of the sexes. Nefertiti convinces the female students to go to war on her side as they wage a campaign against all the men of history. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure meets Battle Royale. So, Prue, as a deaf teenager, is exceptionally serious, intelligent, desperate to win the science fair. When her bully Alex wins instead, she sets out to prove her theory about resonant frequencies in the school building, unleashing havoc. As she tries to make things right, she discovers how much she never really knew in the first place. Her best friend Vi is bubbly and enthusiastic as a practicing witch, thoroughly devoted to her best friend Prue, and she's the one who sets in motion the spell to help her best friend prove her theories. She has a crush on Alex, who consistently bullies Prue, but is compelled to hide her feelings because of her love for her friend. Now, there are four characters that show up in opposition to Prue and Vi as opposing forces. First, there is the science teacher to Prue and Vi, Mr. Harcourt, who believes in being perfectly fair and giving all of his students equal but not equitable treatment. Who is deeply insecure about his own authority. Then there's Alex, who is non-binary on the autism spectrum and proud, but is also deeply jealous of Prue's abilities. There is, of course, Raina, Prue's professional interpreter assigned by the school district, who always has Prue's best interest at heart, whether she realizes it or not. And then once the women rise from the textbooks, Nefertiti comes to the fore as the primary antagonist, a powerful and bloodthirsty queen determined to see the justice she never saw in her lifetime. Extremely charismatic and capable, she wins the other women and girls to her side very easily. Now, there's a wide cast of characters specifically laid out sort of Battle Royale meets Pulp Fiction style, where you see flashbacks to the history of these women. And so they're characters from history that most people don't know as much about, like Ada Lovelace, the inventor of modern computing and algorithms. There is Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first African-American woman to obtain a medical degree. There is Song Mai-ling, the former First Lady of the Republic of China, who I imagine played by Rosalind Chow. Maria de Zayas, the 17th century author of gruesome stories focused on women. So I consider her the first major horror author. And so, of course, I celebrate her every day. Kaha Humanu, the originator of the first Bill of Rights for Native Hawaiian women. Now, the overall story is entirely set inside a high school. And after the science fair project about resonant frequencies takes second place to Alex, Prue objects and accuses her science teacher, Mr. Harcourt, of sexism. The two of them, Prue and Vi, attempt to prove that unseen forces exist, but they are interrupted by Alex. As a result, they shout out Alex's name, immediately altering the spell and accidentally bring to life the historical figures, starting with the Alexanders. Alexander the Great shows up on a horse, followed by Alexander Graham Bell, Alexander Hamilton, and Alexander Calder. Spoiler alert, none of them are nice guys. Vi attempts to reverse the spell, and in the process brings forth the hordes of female scientists, innovators, and artists who are left out. Harcourt tries to take charge immediately. Nefertiti kills him for his offensive comments, inciting a full-blown battle of the sexes. So a lot of events transpire, but ultimately there is an impassioned speech about gender equality that comes from Alex over the intercom. And Alex, as they are attempting to prove themselves, delivers this impassioned speech, but is knocked out for their trouble. But Prue realizes that the sounds on the intercom could create a resonant frequency that matches the paranormal phenomena she was studying. She races to the intercom with her tuning fork, just as Nefertiti grabs by, and she strikes the fork and the hidden figures disappear, leaving the students confused and shaken in a hallway of torn limbs. So the comps for this are pretty much Battle Royale, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Night at the Museum. And the main reason why I came up with the idea for this, even though it's a horror comedy, it's a reflection of the hidden figures that have been lost to us across the ages. While teaching, I always thought about the women who were enslaved or mistreated by the megalomaniacs of history. And I've always been desperate to hear those stories acknowledged, even if not portrayed. And because of my background as a teacher with disabilities and advocate for underrepresented voices, I have a deep understanding of the margins. This story is also for teenagers who felt victimized and powerless in the face of violence. And now that women no longer have autonomy over their own bodies, this is the time for a story of women at war with men. I think this is the story to give women who've been left out of the history books their due, and for every person who has felt unseen in life or on screen.
Man, you are a teacher. That was exactly 7 minutes. That's like really impressive. BJ, I know that you're fluent in Latin. Do you want to ask the former Latin anything in Latin?
I have nothing in Latin that isn't a song I sang in choir in high school.
But
no, this like checks all of my boxes. It's, you know, a horror comedy, it's history, it's gender empowerment. It feels like tonally wise, this would fit into transitionary horror, where you're kind of bridging the gap between like family friendly horror into like hard stuff. And we need more of that. So I think that this is most excellent if we're going to go with Bill and Ted.
I will say I have a 19-month-old daughter, and I have a lot of books thanks to having a lot of really awesome women in my life that really talk about the underrepresented history of women. And so I was curious how many I was actually going to know, and about half of them, which makes me even more excited.
Wow.
That means there's even more that I can learn, which I like to learn. Awesome. I'm going to put you back into the waiting room. Hang out there until we've got 2 more to listen to, and then we'll pick a winner.
All right, great. Thanks.
All the way from down under, mate. Is that good? You're muted. This is great every time.
Sorry, it was fine. Yeah, about a 7.
You're allowed to tell him he's awful. I can tell him for you if you would like.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna attempt to share the screen if I can.
There we go. For those of you that are like Robert Woods, that name sounds familiar. It should sound familiar. Robert, did you have a movie playing at CFF last year?
Oh yes, I did. Last year I had an Ideal Host play.
There you go.
And
so
it
Robert
was
Woods.
great fun.
Robert Woods, director of An Ideal Host. I'm going to start the timer. You'll have 7 minutes. If you'd like to leave us some time at the end to ask questions, you're welcome to, or you're welcome to take all 7 minutes. So hit it.
Okay, so I'm pitching The Summer of Our Lives. It is a dark coming-of-age musical comedy about fear, power, grief, and the choices we make to feel safe in the face of overwhelming uncertainty, all wrapped up in the warm embrace of 80s nostalgia. Based on the award-winning stage musical, the story follows an Australian family on a Christmas holiday to the small coastal town of Dunsborough in 1985, and their encounter with an alien that starts off as magical but slowly turns sour. Penelope is a precocious and paranoid 8-year-old that has become increasingly withdrawn since the sudden death of her father. Constant Cold War reports have made her certain the apocalypse is just around the corner. Feeling alone and looked over, she suddenly finds a friend in Derek, the little alien visitor hiding under her holiday house bed. Derek seems small and defenseless, but is hiding some powerful healing and telekinetic abilities. Penelope and Derek share a bond. They can feel what each other feels. Penelope sees Derek as the solution to keeping her family safe from the endless threats of the world. Beth is a woman desperately trying to keep her life together, having to raise 2 children she doesn't understand, and still sweeping her feelings about her late husband under the rug. Ned is a rather entitled single man from her church congregation who was eager to swoop in and fill the void of patriarch in this ready-made family, a shortcut to what he considers a successful life, and finally a woman who might touch him. Beth has no real love for Ned, but it is a mutually beneficial relationship that lets her save face to friends and family. 15-year-old Arthur has had to grow up very fast as the go-between in the contentious relationship of his mother Beth and little sister Penelope. He retreats to the comfort of books and comics to escape his uneventful and somewhat depressing life. Enter Glance, the manic pixie dream girl of every 80s boy's dream on summer vacation. She is a boisterous American that encourages him to break out of his shell and have some fun exploring the mysterious goings-on in the small town of Dunsborough. Roped off meteor crash sites in the bush, strange men with guns and military personnel, she introduces him to danger and excitement. It's his first real girl crush. But Glance is hiding some dark secrets of her own. She is not entirely all she appears to be. Glance and her father are alien hunters, chasing Summer around the world and looking for the most pathetic families in need of help from the heavens. They're after a species known as a Poppins, an alien whose sole purpose is to enter the lives of wayward souls and provide them with a moment of happiness before floating back up into the sky. And they aren't the only ones hunting this valuable commodity. Unfortunately, Penelope has become dependent on Derek's powers, and the more threatened she feels, the more powerful she becomes, which makes her a danger to everyone around her, leading to a bloody and tragic climax. The original stage concept of Summer of Our Lives grew out of a discussion of stories like E.T. and Mary Poppins, where an external force collides with a dysfunctional family at the right time to solve all their problems and bring them back together. There's dramatic and comedic potential in subverting those tropes and exploring what could happen if a well-meaning creature landed in the wrong family. Every character is looking for a quick and easy solution to their problems without really addressing the underlying issues, and they learn the hard way that this won't do any good in the long run. Echoing the times we currently live in and the uncertain state of the world, these themes are sadly just as relevant today as they are 30 years ago. Only now we get a cool retro synthwave soundtrack to bop along to. It's escapism with heart. It's Steven Spielberg adapting Stephen King with a score by John Carpenter. A story that will entice viewers in and surprise them with unexpected directions they get taken, all with feedback from the sold-out audiences we had with the stage show. There's a great understanding of what worked and what needs further development. And expanding the scope of the story to the big screen presents opportunities to create new songs and new scenes to work specifically for being filmed and edited together into a new cult classic. It's a small, pulpy ensemble number that has big heart and is sure to make a big impact. That's my presentation.
Oh man, I feel like you hit on, you know, what Stranger Things just came out 1 week ago here in the US.
Yeah.
So it's clearly something that's still relevant. The biggest question I have, because I think you did a really good job kind of laying out the world, is what do you have a creature design kind of in mind? What are you thinking? I mean, because it's obvious, like I'm 40, so if you're of a certain age, I grew up on all of those movies you mentioned, and they're all similar but different. I was just curious what your kind of take on it was.
Sure. On stage, the concept was very simple, but in the film, we wanted it to be a bit more complex. I always had in mind that it was a cute looking slimy thing with tentacles, and the tentacles light up and glow, kind of like when Elliot touches E.T. and his finger glows.
Robert,
but it has to be small enough to fit into a backpack.
Robert, you love your tentacles, don't you?
I love tentacles. Yeah.
BJ, any questions, comments for Robert? We got about 40 seconds.
Yeah, sure. So the actual pitch package, just beautiful, lovely, absolutely adore it. My only question for you is, it seems like the nostalgia boom in horror is tiptoeing towards the 90s into the 2000s. So how will you reckon with that, since this is such like a wholly 80s story?
Yeah, we actually had done a development where we set it in 1989, and thematically how that changed it was actually quite significant, because it meant the Cold War had kind of finished. So we tried to change it to like the like other uncertainties of that time, and it was never as strong and was never as relevant as actually what it was when it was set in 85. Yeah. So we ended up going back to it because thematically, yeah, it was, yeah. And also the synthwave soundtrack is just very 80s. So
it may be worth, it may be worth just checking some things in the 90s and see if then you could have a cool grunge, soundtrack. We haven't had a good one of those since what, Empire Records?
I gotta say, synthwave is more my thing than grunge. But as a child of the 90s, yeah, I understand the
that's why you hate the 90s, because you're a child.
It's why I hate the 90s. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. Good to see your face again. Stick around in the waiting room. Here we go, because we got one more to hear. All right, bring Chris in.
Hello,
Chris. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Good to see your face, buddy.
Good to see you.
So, as I mentioned, I got a little timer here. I got 7 minutes on the clock. I'm going to start it. Pitch it like we've never heard anything, because BJ hasn't heard anything.
Okay.
And then if you want to take up the whole 7 minutes, that's your prerogative. Or if you want to give us some time to ask questions at the end, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be time for questions. So Catch a Cannonball is about a bullied, overweight little boy who finds a giant stockpile of millions of dollars that is in his hidden play area in the woods, that's been put there by a serial killer, unbeknownst to him. So he takes this money, and an innocent, very naive, overweight little boy incurs the wrath of this like killing machine. So no Country for Old Men with a little chubby boy.
I love No Country for Old Men. Is this something that you imagine to be set in modern time? Is this any specific era?
I did this thing where I wrote it definitely in my mind seeing it in like 1989 to get the
Mhm.
story out, but doing my best to not give it any actual dated. You could shoot it now. It does. In my mind, it's an exaggerated kind of analog for the Southern world that I grew up in,
Mhm.
which was maybe a little less lawless then. I don't know. There's parts of South Carolina that are pretty lawless still. Yeah, other than maybe I'm stretching that a tad.
No, I
But
mean, I feel like the South feels like what we imagined the Old West was at times.
in places, man, there are places remote enough where there's just, I mean, the cops and the criminals are one flat kind of social organization.
The Venn diagram is a circle. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, BJ, do you have any kind of questions?
Yeah, the only question that I had was on setting, and you answered that. And I think that it's smart to put it in like this, I guess, timeless world, because you're totally right. There are definitely parts of this country where like 1989 in New York City just looks like Ohio now. So
Yeah.
so you have a lot of room to play with, and I think that's great. And I love that it's a little chubby kid, as a chubby kid, as a chubby adult. More chubbiness on screen, please.
Yeah, that was, I mean, like I said, the whole thing is an analog for, just a huge exaggeration. I just was a very naive Bobby Hill style kid growing up in a world where all my like uncles were these like outlaw bikers and they were not good people. And my like immediate family was very sweet, very, very loving and sweet. And so I didn't have a lot of context for that stuff, even though I'd be around it. And it was this, I feel like a lot of David Lynch, a lot of his work, people just think he's weird. But I think he's definitely showing you like really naive, innocent people in totally opposite polarized, dangerous environments. And that it's definitely that kind of kick where it's like showing you comedy kind of is there in the way that this really naive kid is reacting to a really dangerous world, but it's also really disturbing. And I don't I sometimes wonder, a lot of the feedback I get is like you're punishing this kid too much. But it's like you're saying, I mean, I'm getting out all my demons of how it felt growing up in that environment. And nobody ran me down with a bow and arrow and tried to kill me, but it's like when you're little, that's how it feels. And when the world feels dangerous, it feels really dangerous. And so, yeah, it's a big splashy exaggeration of all that.
I think that is a very valid response to that criticism, because everything feels bigger. Everything feels bigger and more dramatic than it actually is. And when you take 2 seconds and kind of like step back, especially as an adult, and you get the context of maybe the full situation that you didn't understand.
Oh yeah, just the world is bigger when you're that small. It's like, have you ever gone back to like your elementary school gym and you're like, this is a shoebox? Like, what happened?
Bizarre. Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, I had to go vote in my old elementary school, and I was like, "What is this? I'm wearing this place like a suit." Tiny.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Awesome, Chris. I'm going to put you back into the waiting room unless you had any final thoughts. BJ, any final questions?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, BJ, let's we will converse via chat so that nobody knows what we're doing right now.
Ooh, I had myself muted when I said, ooh, secret.
Secret time. And then we'll just like bring in the person and they'll have no idea. Are we in agreement? I feel like we might be in agreement. I feel like they were all really, really good. I feel like there was just one that immediately I was like, I just need to see that movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. And if any of them can hear us or see us on the YouTube, what I wanted to type, but didn't type.
But the submissions that we get are so good that I'm just like, oh,
and
it
it's
makes
across
it hard.
the spectrum of genre too. It's not like everybody is pitching us the same thing. We got horror comedies, we got monster movies, we got throwbacks, we got contemporary stories. Like there's so much cool shit going on in people's brains. I love it. I love it.
I know it feels great. All right. I am going to bring in the winner right now, and then we're going to announce that he won, and then we're going to get his reaction because it's going to feel really good. But first, this commercial. No, I'm just joking. That'd be really. Sorry, I've been watching far too much reality TV.
Hello.
Wolf, guess what, bud?
No, come on.
We really loved your pitch, man. It was I mean, I think across the board, like, we felt the emotion in your pitch, we felt the connection to the story. We had a little moment. It was like, I just need to see this movie. And so congrats, you're the winner this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I don't know if you watched any of the other pitches, but it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the group is bananas talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, congrats. I don't know if you do you have anything you want to say, hon?
No, I'm just really appreciative of the opportunity. I'm kind of at a loss at the moment. Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Well, we got a whole hour where we're gonna get a chance to chat. Honestly, man, this is such a cool concept, and so well thought out and fleshed out and kind of interesting and layered in a way that I think a lot of people will feel seen with this.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it for me. This, more than anything else that I've worked on, I've really poured so much of myself and my journey over the last 5 or 6 years, and kind of continued journey as I figure some more stuff out. It's definitely gone into this. So
well, great. Congrats. And then Dustin, I'm gonna have you cut the feed, but I'm gonna keep everybody in so I can have a little chat with them afterwards. We're gonna have a secret chat that CFF doesn't get to know about. Let me know when we're clear, Dustin.